The wedding was picture perfect. Candles flickered, violins played, and laughter echoed through the grand banquet hall. But just 48 hours later, the young bride was found dead. A crimson trail leading from her wrist to the floor of her honeymoon suite. The world mourned. The media speculated. But the courtroom? It demanded answers. When 27-year-old Anna Miller, a promising architect and beloved daughter, married tech entrepreneur Ryan Carter, their union was hailed as a modern fairy tale. But that dream dissolved into tragedy when Anna was discovered lifeless, her wrists slit in a luxury hotel bathtub. Her family cried foul, suspecting foul play. Ryan's defense claimed it was suicide, a tragic outcome of untreated depression. What followed was a courtroom battle riddled with secrets, betrayals, and shocking revelations. The first witness took the stand with nervous fingers and darting eyes. Her name was Chloe Anderson, Anna's college roommate and closest confidant. As she sat down, the prosecutor's voice echoed through the courtroom. "Ms. Anderson, how would you describe Anna's mental state leading up to the wedding?" Chloe hesitated for a moment, swallowed hard, and said, conflicted. She was excited, but also afraid. She loved Ryan, or at least she wanted to. But something changed the moment the engagement became official. The courtroom leaned in. Murmurs filled the air. "She told me," Chloe continued, "that Ryan had begun to control every detail of her life. Her clothes, her job interviews, even which friends she could talk to. At first, she said it was love, that he just cared too much. But by the time the wedding came around, she barely smiled." The defense objected, but the judge allowed the testimony to continue. Chloe reached into her purse and held up her phone. "I didn't want to bring this up at first. I didn't want to believe what I heard. But this is the voice message Anna sent me the night before the wedding." The audio was played in court. Anna's voice trembled, barely above a whisper. "Chloe, I don't know if I'm doing the right thing. He got angry again today. Over my dress of all things. He said I looked too independent, like I was trying to prove something. I laughed, but he didn't. He stared at me like I'd embarrassed him. I can't tell Mom. She's too happy. Everyone's too happy. I'm just tired." A sharp silence settled in. Even Ryan's defense team looked visibly rattled. But the cracks didn't end there. More witnesses came forward. Waiters, decorators, even the wedding photographer. "I saw them arguing behind the dais," said Patrick, the photographer. Ryan had his hand clenched around her arm. Not tight enough to bruise maybe, but tight enough to scare. She was whispering something, and he snapped, told her to shut her mouth before people started asking questions. Anna's younger cousin, Lily, just 19, described seeing her cry in the bridal suite hours before the ceremony. She was dabbing her eyes with tissue, but pretending she was fixing her makeup. I asked her if she was okay. She smiled and said, "Some girls cry because they're too happy. I cry because I don't know what I'm doing." I thought she was joking. I laughed. I wish I hadn't. The court reviewed video footage from the wedding, and a moment slowed down by investigators played on a screen. It was subtle, almost nothing to the untrained eye. But when Anna walked down the aisle, her smile was forced, trembling at the edges. Ryan stood stiff, expression unreadable. When she reached him, she whispered something that made his jaw clench. He didn't respond. Then came a critical piece of evidence, the wedding night surveillance footage. While most guests had retired, Anna was seen wandering the hallway of the resort in her nightgown, barefoot, clutching her phone. She stood outside the honeymoon suite for nearly 3 minutes before finally entering. An expert lip reader testified that her whispered words on camera seemed to be, "Please don't start again." Ryan's defense claimed she was emotionally unstable, under pressure from the wedding, perhaps even experiencing a breakdown. They presented photos of her browsing mental health websites weeks before the wedding. But the prosecution struck back with Anna's therapist's testimony, who stated clearly, Anna had anxiety, not depression. She never showed signs of suicidal thinking. She was fearful, not of life, but of him. What sealed the impact of this section of the trial was a handwritten letter discovered inside Anna's jewelry box, addressed to her sister Emily. The letter wasn't dated, but its words painted a dark picture. If anything ever happens to me, please don't believe it was an accident or something I wanted. I've made choices I can't undo. I just wish I'd been braver sooner. Maybe in another life, I'll get to walk away. But if I don't, tell Mom I loved her. And Emily, don't marry someone who makes you feel small. The courtroom remained frozen after that letter was read aloud. Emily wept quietly in the gallery. Anna's mother lowered her face into her hands. The prosecution ended this phase with a simple statement. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, this was no impulsive suicide. This was the tragic final act of a woman who tried to live, but found herself caged in a marriage that was never what it seemed. As the judge called for recess, Ryan sat motionless, eyes fixed ahead, jaw tight. But the damage was done. The illusion of a happy marriage was broken, and the mask of love had started to slip. The courtroom turned its attention to the night that turned a bride into a corpse and a honeymoon suite into a crime scene. The prosecution began with the timeline. Anna Miller was last seen alive at 10:43 p.m. by the hotel lobby receptionist, who confirmed she took the elevator up alone after borrowing a phone charger. By 11:32 p.m., a loud crash was reported by the neighboring suite. At 11:55 p.m., Ryan Carter called the front desk, claiming he had found his wife unresponsive in the bathtub. But the forensic analyst painted a different picture. Her body was cold to the touch by the time paramedics arrived, said Dr. Evelyn Hart, the forensic pathologist. Based on the rigor and lividity, we estimate her time of death to be approximately 10:50 p.m. That's before the crash, and a full hour before the emergency call. The prosecution raised a single question. What was Ryan doing during that lost hour? Photographs of the crime scene were displayed. Anna's body lay curled in the tub, wrists slit, her engagement ring still on. Blood mixed with the water, leaving behind a diluted red haze. On the counter beside her was a broken mirror, its glass shattered, one large shard missing. Ryan's explanation was simple. He went down to the hotel bar to get a drink and came back to the scene. But the hotel bar's CCTV footage had no trace of him. Instead, the footage showed him pacing the corridor outside the room at 11:18 p.m. and again entering the suite just 2 minutes before the emergency call. When questioned, Ryan stated, "I needed air. We had a fight, and I left. When I came back, she had already done it." But the absence of security footage showing him exiting the building or going to the bar began to unravel his claim. Then came the digital forensics team. They analyzed Anna's phone, or rather, what was left of it. Her phone was manually reset at 10:47 p.m., said Madison Blake, the lead digital investigator. It wiped all call logs, texts, and photos. That sort of action isn't common unless someone intends to conceal digital evidence. More troubling was the fact that the reset process was initiated from a connected laptop. Ryan's laptop, found in the room. The defense argued it could have been automatic, a scheduled maintenance or update. But the prosecution pushed back. There was nothing scheduled. It was a manual reset. Someone clicked, erase all content. That's not a passive accident. That's intent. Further blood spatter analysis showed a faint trail of blood, not leading toward the tub, but away from it, toward the entrance. As if someone walked out with blood on them. The prosecution raised a theory. Anna was already dead, and someone tampered with the scene to stage a suicide. A pair of cufflinks became a key piece of evidence. One was recovered beside the bed, stained with blood. The other was found in the hallway trash chute the next day. The forensic report confirmed the blood matched Anna's DNA. Ryan's explanation was vague. They must have fallen off when I lifted her. But why throw one away? That's when the broken mirror came into sharper focus. The missing shard was never recovered. The defense claimed Anna used it to cut herself, and that it may have been discarded by paramedics. But a crime scene photo showed the broken mirror before paramedics arrived, and the shard was already gone. What kind of person kills themselves but cleans up afterward? The prosecutor asked. Where's the missing shard? Where's the blood trail leading to the trash? More witnesses were called. One was the couple in the room next door, David and Karen Woods, who described hearing muffled shouting and the sound of something heavy hitting the floor around 10:45 p.m. I thought it was just a drunk couple fighting, Karen admitted. But now I wish I'd called someone. The case pivoted when the bathtub drain was examined. Forensic analysis discovered tiny skin fragments, not belonging to Anna. They were consistent with male tissue. A DNA match confirmed the trace belonged to Ryan. That tells us one of two things, Dr. Hart stated. Either Ryan tried to lift Anna from the tub after she died, or he was in there with her when it happened. The defense clung to the first explanation. But when the tub's internal surface was further analyzed, the prosecution uncovered fingerprints, not smudges but full impressions. On the inside of the tub wall, above the waterline, Anna's prints weren't there, only Ryan's. You don't lift a body from inside a tub by pushing against the wall, said the prosecutor. You push when you're trying to hold someone down. A hushed gasp swept through the courtroom. Then came the coup de grace, a time-stamped access record from the keycard system. The suite door had been opened and closed 3 times between 10:40 p.m. and 11:55 p.m. But only one keycard had been used, Ryan's. Ladies and gentlemen, the prosecutor said, stepping away from the screen. This isn't the story of a woman taking her own life. This is the story of a man covering up a murder, and almost getting away with it. Ryan remained composed, his expression unreadable. But the jury looked shaken. The pieces of that night, the missing hour, the false alibi, the digital erasure, no longer fit the shape of a suicide. They formed something colder, more deliberate, and the noose of suspicion grew tighter. The courtroom was unusually quiet when Margaret Miller, Anna's mother, took the stand. She walked slowly, clutching a handkerchief, her movements stiff with grief. A mother doesn't expect to bury her daughter, and certainly not under the shadow of murder. She adjusted her glasses, looked straight ahead, and waited. The prosecutor's voice was gentle. Mrs. Miller, can you tell the court about your daughter's state of mind in the days before her death? Margaret swallowed, her lips quivering before she spoke. Anna was tired, but not suicidal. My daughter was full of dreams. She had just been promoted to lead a design project in Chicago. She wanted children. She wanted to build a life. Her voice cracked, but she didn't break. She wasn't perfect, but she was determined. She never once, not in all her years, talked about ending her life. She paused, then looked straight at Ryan. Until she married him. Ryan didn't flinch, but the court noticed the way his fingers tightened against the table. The prosecutor placed a transcript on the screen, a log of text messages between Anna and her mother. Several were warm and ordinary. Pictures of wedding dresses, shopping lists, recipes. But then the tone changed. One message, just 5 days before the wedding, read, "Mom, do you think it's too late to back out of something that looks perfect but feels wrong?" Margaret said she called her immediately after that message. She brushed it off, said she was being silly. But I knew my child. That wasn't a joke. That was a cry for help she didn't think I could answer. She continued, describing the last phone call she had with Anna, the night before the wedding. She was quiet. I kept asking if she was okay. She finally said, "I'm scared." I asked why, and she said, because no one would believe me if I told the truth. Then she changed the subject. I never got to ask her what truth she meant. The courtroom hung on her words like thread. The defense attempted to counter. Mrs. Miller, are you aware your daughter had struggled with anxiety in college? Is it possible those symptoms returned under the stress of her wedding? Margaret's tone sharpened. My daughter was anxious, not unstable. She sought therapy, she managed it. If anything, she grew stronger. But after she got engaged to Ryan, she changed. She stopped laughing the way she used to. Her messages became shorter. Her eyes lost their spark. That wasn't anxiety. That was fear. She reached into her bag and produced a folded envelope, one she had hesitated to bring forward until now. This arrived the day after the funeral, she said, holding it up. I thought it was a condolence card, but it wasn't. Inside was a handwritten letter addressed to Margaret. The judge allowed it to be read aloud. Mom, if this ever reaches you, it means something went terribly wrong. I want to start by saying I'm sorry. Sorry I didn't tell you everything. Sorry I let everyone believe I was happy when I wasn't. Ryan is not who he says he is. He's different in private. Angry. Controlling. I don't know how to explain it without sounding paranoid. But please don't believe it if they say I was depressed. I was scared. That's different. I thought I could fix things. But now I think I made a mistake I can't undo. Take care of Emily. Tell her not to fall for the fairy tale. And if there's a trial, yes, I said if. Don't let them call me weak. I wasn't. I was just too late. The courtroom was still as the letter was read. No coughs, no chairs creaked. Just silence and tears. The defense declined to cross-examine. But the prosecution wasn't done. They called Anna's therapist, Dr. Melissa Grant, who had been seeing her regularly for nearly a year. Anna came to me because she was having trouble adjusting to her new life with Ryan, Dr. Grant explained. She never expressed suicidal ideation. On the contrary, she was working hard to make the relationship work. But her descriptions of Ryan raised red flags. Emotional manipulation, isolation, and cycles of affection followed by coldness and verbal threats. She paused, then added, Anna once told me, he makes me feel like I'm two different people, the one he wants and the one he controls. That is the language of someone being emotionally abused, not someone preparing to take her own life. The defense tried to challenge the diagnosis, suggesting perhaps Anna had concealed deeper issues. But Dr. Grant was firm. If she had, she wouldn't have been making plans for the future. She had signed up for a weekend course. She had been talking about starting a design firm. People who are preparing for the end don't invest in the future. Finally, the prosecution displayed a series of photos Anna had saved in a hidden album on her phone. Photos of bruises on her arms, a red mark near her collarbone, and a photo of a smashed wine glass with a caption that read, He says I provoke him. The jury didn't need the caption to understand. The prosecutor stood, walked slowly to the jury box, and said, You've heard from the woman who raised Anna, from the professional who guided her, from Anna herself. Do these sound like the thoughts of a woman ready to die, or a woman trying to escape something she couldn't name out loud? No one answered aloud. They didn't need to. Anna's voice had finally been heard. By the fourth week of the trial, it was no longer just about a death. It was about unraveling the carefully woven mask Ryan Carter had worn, the illusion of a grieving husband, and exposing the secrets he never meant to leave behind. The courtroom turned tense when the prosecution introduced their next line of evidence. A digital forensic audit conducted on both Ryan and Anna's email accounts, along with cloud backups. Ryan had surrendered access voluntarily at the beginning of the investigation, confident that there was nothing to find. He was wrong. The lead investigator, Special Agent Thomas Kerr, was called to the stand. Calm and methodical, he clicked his remote and a new exhibit appeared on the screen. A thread of emails between Ryan and a woman named Vanessa Brooks. The name meant nothing to the court at first, until the connection was explained. Vanessa was Ryan's ex-girlfriend, the one he had dated on and off for 5 years before he met Anna, the one he had supposedly cut off all contact with when he got engaged. The emails told a different story. One message, dated just 2 weeks before Anna's death, read, "I know this isn't how it was supposed to go, Vanessa. I thought I could move on. I thought marrying her would change things. But it didn't. I still think about you every day." Another, more chilling message read, "Just hold on a little longer. I've made my choice. Things will be clearer soon, for both of us." The courtroom murmured. Vanessa was tracked down and subpoenaed. On the stand, she seemed nervous but composed. "I didn't respond to most of the emails," she admitted. "I was confused. He told me he was happy, but then he started sending these mixed messages. When I asked why he was marrying Anna, he just said, 'It's complicated.'" The prosecution didn't need Vanessa to accuse Ryan of anything. Her presence and the digital paper trail were enough to cast doubt on Ryan's motives. Why maintain emotional contact with an ex-girlfriend if you were happy and devoted to your new wife? But what followed was even more damning. Anna's younger sister, Emily Miller, was recalled to the stand. With trembling hands, she handed over a manila envelope to the prosecutor, one she had found hidden in Anna's personal storage box a few days after the funeral. Inside was a draft of a new will, typed but unsigned, dated a week before Anna's death. The contents were brief but unmistakable. Anna had planned to revoke her joint marital will and instead name her sister Emily as the sole beneficiary of all personal savings, property rights, and life insurance policies. Ryan's name was entirely absent. "Your Honor," the prosecutor said, holding up the document. "This draft, though unsigned, clearly indicates intent. Intent to change the terms of her legacy and remove Ryan from any legal claim to her estate." The defense attempted to argue that the will was inadmissible, that it lacked legal weight without a signature, that perhaps Anna never intended to finalize it. But the prosecution countered with a voice note Anna had recorded, stored on a cloud backup Emily hadn't known existed. Her voice was calm, measured, and deliberate. "Emily, I need you to hold on to this in case I don't get around to signing it before the honeymoon. I know this is weird, but I don't want him to have anything if something happens to me. Not the money, not the apartment, not even the furniture. You'll understand one day." Ryan sat stiffly in his chair as the note played, his jaw working back and forth as if trying to chew through the air. The financial investigator who reviewed the Carter's accounts took the stand next. He confirmed that Anna's life insurance policy, activated just 2 months before the wedding, listed Ryan as the primary beneficiary, a payout of $1.5 million in the event of her death. And then he revealed the final blow. 3 days before Anna's death, he said, Ryan Carter logged into the policy's account using his device. He viewed the payout clause and printed a PDF summary. That log was time-stamped and confirmed by the insurance provider. "Did Anna log in during that time?" the prosecutor asked. "No, only Ryan." A picture was forming, not one of grief or confusion, but one of motive. The man who claimed to love his wife had reconnected with an ex-girlfriend, reviewed the terms of her life insurance policy, and was about to be written out of her will. And then she died. The prosecution turned to the jury. "We often search for a smoking gun," he said. "But sometimes murder isn't loud. It's slow, quiet. It's not a bullet, but a plan. A string of quiet decisions leading to one final, irreversible act." Ryan Carter had motive, means, and knowledge of what he stood to gain. What Anna didn't know, what she couldn't see in time, was that her husband was making sure her future ended before she had the chance to reclaim it. As court adjourned for the day, eyes turned not to the bench, but to Ryan. For the first time, his mask cracked. He shifted uncomfortably, not from grief or sorrow, but exposure. He had hidden everything in plain sight. All the facts had been laid bare. The evidence was damning, the testimonies heart-wrenching, and the silence from the defense, at times, deafening. But as the trial entered its final stage, the courtroom buzzed with the one lingering uncertainty. Would Ryan Carter testify? The answer came on a rainy Thursday morning, when the defense unexpectedly called Ryan to the stand. He wore a dark blue suit, his tie perfectly knotted, his expression unreadable. As he raised his hand and took the oath, the entire courtroom seemed to lean forward. This was the moment, either a final act of manipulation or the unraveling of a man who had lost control. Ryan spoke calmly, even charismatically at times. "I loved Anna," he began. "I didn't always show it the right way, but I never stopped loving her. We had our fights. What couple doesn't? But I never laid a hand on her. I never abused her. And I certainly didn't kill her." He told the jury that Anna had been under a lot of pressure, that she struggled with anxiety and fear of commitment, and that the honeymoon argument was nothing more than a misunderstanding. "I left the room to give her space. When I came back, she was already gone." The prosecutor approached slowly. "Mr. Carter, did you or did you not access your wife's life insurance account 3 days before her death?" Ryan nodded. "I did. We were planning to start a family. I wanted to know what coverage we had." "Did you also email your ex-girlfriend and tell her that things would be clearer soon?" A pause. "Yes, but it wasn't what it sounds like." "Then explain it to us," the prosecutor said. "Because right now, it sounds like you were preparing for your wife to disappear." Ryan hesitated. "Vanessa was a mistake. I was confused. I shouldn't have reached out." "And what about the fingerprints inside the tub? The digital reset on Anna's phone? The missing mirror shard? Are those just mistakes too?" Ryan shifted in his seat. "I don't know how my prints got there. Maybe I leaned in. Maybe I panicked." The prosecutor leaned closer. "You didn't panic. You planned. You accessed her finances, reconnected with an old flame, erased digital evidence, and staged a suicide. You didn't lose your wife. You silenced her." Ryan looked away. For the first time, he seemed small, powerless. The defense declined redirect. And with that, the courtroom braced for the final act. The verdict. The verdict. The jury deliberated for 12 hours. When they returned, their foreperson stood, holding the verdict slip in trembling hands. The entire courtroom stood as the clerk read, "In the case of the People versus Ryan Carter, on the charge of first-degree murder in the death of Anna Carter, we the jury find the defendant guilty." A gasp escaped from Anna's mother. Emily gripped the bench so tightly her knuckles turned white. Ryan remained still. No outburst, no collapse. Just an eerie calm. Then came the judge's moment. Her voice carried the gravity of the room, as heavy as it was unshakable. "Mr. Carter, this court has heard from those who loved Anna, from her mother, her sister, her therapist, and Anna herself, in the words she left behind. She was not unstable. She was not confused. She was terrified of you. You planned her death with cold precision. You covered your tracks. You assumed she had no voice. But today, through those who knew her, and the facts that refused to stay buried, she spoke." The judge's voice wavered, but she steadied herself. "You ended a life that was trying to begin, and for that, this court sentences you to life in prison without the possibility of parole." The gavel fell. Tears rolled down Margaret Miller's cheeks as she clutched Anna's necklace in her palm, the one she had worn on her wedding day. Emily wept openly beside her, whispering a quiet goodbye only she could hear. Justice had come late, but it had come. And Anna, silenced in life, had roared in death.